In this video, I'm going to go through the steps I take to form a reed from a GSP cane to finished blank. So, are you ready for this? It's morphin' time! Brontosaurus! And don't forget, if you like this video and other videos on this channel, to hit the subscribe button and make sure that notifications are on so that you can find your way back for the next one. The tools I'll be using in this video are 320 grain wet dry sandpaper, a Wheat bevel tool, a Rieger F210 tool to have the Bassoon cane, a wedge mandrel, a 2X reed holding mandrel, butcher's twine, 0.7mm wire, pliers, an easel made from 1 1/4 inch dowel, a 2X reed scoring tool, a metal ruler, and a hobby knife with number 11 blades. So let's begin with the GSP cane. In order for us to prepare the cane for forming, we need it to be soaked in warm water for 15 to 30 minutes. Generally speaking, most reed makers I know put the cane in a pot and set it on the stove at the minimum temperature. Gerald Corey, for instance, told me that the cane would be ready by the time we see lots of little bubbles lining the bottom of the pot. If you aren't working near the stove, be aware that there will be a time limit between taking the pot off of the stove until forming the cane. If the water becomes lukewarm or tepid by the time you begin to form the tube, then you might consider heating the water up again on the stove before continuing. I'll talk more about this in a minute. To prepare the cane, we want to make sure to do 4 things. 1, we want the collar, or the step where the tube meets the blade, to be set perfectly at a 90-degree angle. Not all cane vendors have a machinery which can define the collar, so you may or may not need to do this yourself. This is best done with a hobby knife. 2, bevel the cane with the Wheat bevel tool. 3, score the cane with the 2X reed scoring tool. 4, and finally, sand the inside of the gouge. When the fibers of the cane are soaked in hot water, they swell. Using a strip of sandpaper wrapped around my finger, just so, I sand the inside of the blade in a circular motion using lots of hot water as lubricant. The more cane which comes off at this stage, the better, as this will create as smooth of a surface as possible inside the reed. Many players sand the gouge side when the cane is dry, but fibers of the cane will still swell up and cause a certain roughness to be inside of the reed when soaked. Sanding the cane just before forming will be slightly more effective since I am sanding fibers which are already swollen. Now the cane is prepared for forming. I quickly soak a piece of butcher's twine, fold the cane in half, and wrap the tube with twine. I make sure to allow for a very slight counterclockwise side slip when looking at the butt end. Forming with a side slip is important to avoid one side of the tube to swallow the side edges of the opposite side. That is to say, to create an uneven tube where one blade becomes much rounder than the other and imbalancing the reed. The side slip I make is absolutely minimal and is counterbalanced by the wire being tightened in a clockwise motion. If you twist your wire counterclockwise, like most do, then you would want to set your side slip clockwise when facing the butt end. With this done, I insert the wedge mandrel to open the tube, and then insert the holding mandrel and crimp on the pliers below the second wire mark. In order to get the reed to the second line on the mandrel, I sometimes have to hold the cane with the pliers along the seams, but I am very careful not to do this too far up from the butt end, lest I accidentally split the tube open. Once crimping is complete, I double check the collar to see if there are any potential cracks. If I feel a certain point along the collar might crack as the cane dries, then I open up the area around it with a hobby blade, as you can see here. Finally, I put the formed tube on the drying board and wait for at least 8 hours for it to dry. Once the cane has been dried, I wire it by placing the 3 wires and checking with the ruler their placement. Once the wires are correctly placed, then I tighten them. There is an art to wiring a reed. I found that even in person, it is very difficult to teach how to correctly wire a tube without them being left either too loose or being too tight as to crush it. So I won't go into more detail in this video. I still have to think a lot about it, so it's at the moment, still in the ether somewhere. Once the wires are on, I glue the tube. wrap the reed, and then glue it a second time. Gluing the reed twice will prevent the third wire from going loose and the ball falling off of the reed as it begins to be sensitive to moisture changes as it ages. So that's it. I hope that this video is helpful to you. If you want to see more information on reed making from me, then visit the bassoons.ch Facebook page, which is linked below, and you can watch over 30 live streams on reed making topics. And don't forget to please consider supporting my online work by becoming a patron via Patreon or by making an order at bassoons.ch. Thanks very much for watching, and take it easy. Bye-bye.